Hi, I'm Mark Griffin, and I'm the Inspector General for Cuyahoga County. I want to welcome you to this ethics training for contractors and lobbyists. I want to tell you first a little bit about what we do in the Inspector General's office and why we're doing this training today. The Agency of Inspector General is an independent office, and we're responsible for detecting, deterring, and investigating allegations of corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse anywhere in Cuyahoga County government or its contractors. Our agency also serves as the Chief Ethics Investigative Officer for Cuyahoga County. We look at and enforce the Cuyahoga County Ethics Law. It's one of the most comprehensive public sector ethics policy in the state of Ohio. We hold over 5,000 county employees, contractors, and lobbyists who do business with the county to the highest of ethical standards. It's no longer business as usual in Cuyahoga County. And we're here today, and you're listening to this today, because we have several goals. The first and most important is to prevent ethical abuse. We want every contract and every contractor to have a new standard of ethical conduct. Secondly, we're here to protect taxpayers. Every taxpayer should know that any contract and any employee who they deal with is operating at the highest of ethical standards. The third reason is to protect you, the contractors. We want to protect you from requests that are improper. We want to protect you from competitors that are improper. We want to protect you from misunderstandings about what the law is and what it requires. And finally, we want to encourage you that if you see something, say something. Our office can only be effective, and we can only have ethics in Cuyahoga County if you tell us things that you see. So at the bottom of every slide, there's a telephone number, 216-698-2999. If you see something, say something, because ethics is everybody's business. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the taxpayers, and to the residents of this county to engage in the highest business practices of the highest ethical standards. And I promise to you that if you report an allegation of wrongdoing to my office, we will fully investigate it and take every step necessary so that in Cuyahoga County, ethics is our culture and ethics is everybody's business. The Inspector General's office was created in the wake of the most significant public corruption scandal in Cuyahoga County history. But it's not enough to sit back and wait for violations to occur. We want to aspire to a higher standard. We want a proactive culture where every employee, every public official, and every contractor acts with the highest of ethics. And this is part of that training seminar. Our new culture of compliance has a new ethics code and a new set of standards. First, the county has passed one of the most strict ethical codes in Ohio. It's an ethical code that every contractor is responsible for knowing. Second, they've instituted a new contractor registration process. And that was probably a process that you've started. We now have online systems, and you're here because you've started that process. But a third factor that you should know about is that contractors are now subject to debarment under county law. What is debarment? Well, debarment is a process where a contractor who violates the law or violates an ethical code or other improper conduct can be prohibited from any more contracts with Cuyahoga County. And that has an impact not just on the ability to do business here in Cuyahoga County, but typically other governments look to the debarments, and if you're debarred in one jurisdiction, you're likely to be debarred in others as well. And fourth, it created the Agency of Inspector General. The county empowered us to conduct investigations and inspections looking at fraud, corruption, waste, and abuse in the operations of county government. Contractors are also required to cooperate with the Inspector General. In any investigation and in every contract, contractors agree to provide the information requested by my office. Contractors that fail to do that can be subject to a 3-year debarment for the failure to cooperate. The county ethics law applies to you, and that means also the part of the county ethics code that requires cooperation with investigations of the Inspector General. For every contract that the county enters into, there's a provision that every contractor has to cooperate with an investigation. Well, what does that mean? That means that if there's an issue or if we need to monitor or audit the contract, we may come and ask you for documents or proof that the goods delivered were as they were promised. The failure to cooperate with an Inspector General investigation may result in a debarment. The county code requires that every lobbyist and contractor register with the Inspector General. So first, that means to complete the lobbyist or contractor registration, which hopefully you've already done using our online forms. You also need to sign and affirm the ethics certification form, which means that you've read the ethics law and that you understand your obligations. You need to pay a $100 registration fee, and you can do this either through the credit card or by sending a check to our office. Once that's done, you need to complete the ethics training provided by the Inspector General. This is the ethics training that we're talking about now. It will run about 30 or 35 minutes. Now, hopefully the completion of the lobbyist and contractor registration form took you about 10 or 15 minutes. But as part of your ongoing obligations, you're required to stay current with the ethics law, but also to inform us of any change of address. Every registration is good for 4 years. So for example, if you registered in 2016, your registration will expire 4 years later on December 31, 2020. Regardless of the date during the year that you registered, all expirations will occur on December 31, 4 years later. Finally, in addition to what the contractors need to do, lobbyists have to file annual disclosure forms, which we'll talk a little bit about now. Lobbyists have additional requirements that aren't required of contractors. Lobbyists have to submit before January 1st of each year a disclosure form. And this disclosure form is similar to what you've probably submitted for state lobbying requirements or federal lobbying requirements. First and most fundamentally, it requires you to disclose the name, phone number, and address of the registered lobbyist, but also all of your employees or agents who engage in lobbying activities on behalf of your entity. Secondly, just like you would do for the state or federal government, you need to disclose a list of all clients, including their names, phone numbers, addresses, the nature of the business, if you are receiving compensation for engaging in lobbying activities on their behalf. The third section of the lobbying disclosure requirements are a statement of all matters on which the registered lobbyist has lobbied for each client in the past year, or on which the registered lobbyist is contracted to lobby in the future. Again, very similar to what you're required to do at the state and federal level. The fourth element of the lobbyist disclosure requirements is to provide a list of any past positions held by the registered lobbyists or any of your employees as an elected official, employee, or board member of the county and the period of time during which each individual held such position. And the purpose of this requirement is for us to know whether or not there are any revolving door issues or whether you or a member of your staff are lobbying on an issue which you were previously involved in while you were a member of the county. And then fifth, any other information that we may require from the Inspector General's office. At this time, we're only requesting those 4 items in order to keep things easy and simple for lobbyists. State law and county law prohibit gifts by lobbyists and contractors to public officials. It's important to understand that state law is in addition to the county requirements, which we'll talk about later. But Revised Code Section 102.03, which is the state law, stands independently. It serves as a floor or a minimum level of permitted conduct. But as we'll talk about, the county has raised higher levels, but you need to be aware that the state has separate requirements that are in addition to what we have here in the county as well. Under state law, you cannot provide any gifts that are substantial or from an improper source. If you are a contractor or a lobbyist, you would be considered an improper source and could not give a gift that is substantial. But that is the state law. The county code has additional requirements that are independent and in addition to the state law. In addition to the state requirements, the county has a strict ethics code that goes above and beyond what is required from the state. Under the county code, gifts from contractors and lobbyists are controlled under Section 404.02 for contractors and 405.02 for lobbyists under the county code. Well, what does that say? First of all, you cannot pay for or provide or offer gifts in excess of $75 in any calendar year. That calendar gift limitation is an annual amount, which means that you can't divide large gifts into smaller individual gifts to avoid the threshold of $75 in any calendar year. You also cannot make campaign contributions for or on behalf of any elected official candidate for county office if your purpose is to influence any matter of county business. Separately from the issue of campaign contributions for the purpose of influencing legislation, there's a separate requirement with respect to gifts personally to a public official from contractors and lobbyists. A contractor or lobbyist may not pay for, offer, or provide any gift of any amount if the intent is to reward or influence an official action. So how does the county determine whether there is an intent or purpose to influence legislation or to influence any sort of official action? Well, the answer to that is there are certain presumptions. A gift is presumed to be improper if they're from a contractor or lobbyist and they're greater than $75 in any calendar year that we talked about before, or the contractor or lobbyist seeks a county action which involves an exercise of discretion, or, going backwards, the contractor obtained county action involving the exercise of discretion by the recipient within the last 12 months. So there are three primary ways in which we determine whether or not there is intent or purpose that is improper. The first is the $75 threshold that we talked about in any calendar year. The second is a prospective test, which is if the contractor is seeking a county action which involves an exercise of discretion, it will be considered to be for an improper purpose. And the third bullet is retrospective, which means in the last 12 months, if the contractor has obtained a county action involving the exercise of discretion, the presumption will be that the gift is improper. For example, a private sector party cannot compensate a public employee for performing their official job duty. It happens from time to time that government employees will go and make a presentation at a workplace, and they will be asked to be compensated with a free gift card just as a gratuity. $15 to Chipotle, a gift card to Bed Bath & Beyond, something else along those lines. That is not permitted. If you're a government employee, if you have a government employee that is coming to visit or that you're working with, you can't pay them or give them any compensation for doing the job that the public is already paying them to do. So even though it seems like a normal, nice gratuity, that is prohibited under the county ethical code. Let's talk a little bit more about what it means to provide gifts, meals, entertainment, or other things of value. There is a bar of providing more than $75 of anything of value in any given year. A public official and a public employee cannot solicit from you or accept a gift from you of a substantial value, $75 overall in any year, from any prohibited source. Well, what is a prohibited source? A prohibited source is any person, company, organization, or other entity that is doing business or seeking to do business with the county. So you are here as part of our contractor registration and ethical training program. That would include you. Or even if you're simply regulated by or interested in matters before the agency, that is a prohibited source, and neither you nor other entities that are regulated by the agency can provide anything of value to a public official. So what are the types of things of value that we have seen in Cuyahoga County that have created problems? Well, contractors have provided entertainment to public officials, they provided home remodeling to public officials, and they provided gifts of substantial value, again, anything more than $75 in a calendar year on a cumulative basis, but they've also provided travel, meals, and lodging. So let's ask a few questions about how that actually plays out and some examples for you to consider. True or false? These are some examples that have come up in recent history in Ohio and in Cuyahoga County that may not be immediately obvious. Our first example is if you're doing business with the county, you may also be asked to do business or provide some benefits to a public official. So for example, are contractors allowed to provide public officials with discounted home remodeling? False. Contractors cannot provide services to public officials, and they cannot provide discounted services to public officials. Former County Commissioner Jimmy DeMora was convicted for accepting discounted and free home remodeling contracts from county contractors. For example, they put in a new gazebo, a pizza oven, and a new veranda in his home for the personal use of Mr. DeMora. This resulted in a 28-year sentence, which he is currently serving on racketeering and other bribery and corruption-related charges. There may be situations where you as a contractor have access to free goods. So for example, there are some contractors or some businessmen who for whatever reason may have access to free suites in casinos, whether they're in Las Vegas or otherwise. Can a county contractor pay for public officials to vacation in Las Vegas as long as the county contract is obtained through a competitive bidding process? False. Even if you have access to a free suite, you can't make that available to a public official. Jimmy DeMora was convicted for accepting supplemented travel and access to a free suite with the county contractors. The picture on the left shows the suite at the Mirage that was provided to county contractor Ferris Kleem for free, and part of the conviction was simply that Mr. Kleem allowed Jimmy DeMora to stay in that suite. The picture on the right shows Jimmy DeMora and Frank Russo in Las Vegas. You never want a picture from your travels that say government exhibit on them. That's not a good thing. These contractors thought, or said they thought, that because they weren't paying for the suite, that they could make it available to county officials. That is not the case. True or false? Can an owner of a local motel offer to pay the president of city council $5,000 if he believes it will ensure his or her beer and wine permit is granted? Of course not. Just months ago, an East Cleveland business owner was arrested for attempting to bribe an East Cleveland councilman. What the East Cleveland councilman did was, as soon as there was a request for this transaction, he went to law enforcement authorities, was wired up, and the result was that the business owner has now been arrested and indicted. But what if you have unused sports tickets that are simply going to go to waste? Can you offer them to a county official without a charge? Because if they're not used, they're simply going to be valueless. No, you can't. Even if you think those tickets have no value, you can't give them to a public official if you're doing business with the county. Recently, State Representative Mallory was convicted of a misdemeanor and given probation because he accepted Cincinnati Bengals tickets from a contractor. He had to pay a total of $600 in fines and was forced to resign. True or false? What if you have a home and you simply allow a public official to stay there? Can a contractor let a county official take his or her family for a week-long vacation and stay in a vacation home if the county official pays $500 towards fair market value? False. Brian Hicks, the former chief of staff to Governor Taft, pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor because he stayed in the Florida vacation home of contractor Tom Noe. And even though Mr. Hicks paid $500 for what he claimed was fair market value, this was still a misdemeanor because he accepted a gift and he failed to disclose it. But what if you belong to a country club with golf privileges? And as a member, you can bring guests for free. Is that something that's permitted? Is that something that needs to be disclosed? Governor Bob Taft found out that it does have to be disclosed. He pleaded no contest to misdemeanor criminal charges that he failed to report free golf outings and other gifts on his financial disclosure forms. And these were golf outings for which the member did not have to pay. So even if there is no charge to you, you can't make this available to public officials, whether it is a hotel suite in Las Vegas or a free golf outing at your club. Here's another question. A county official is throwing a graduation party for her daughter, and although you don't know her, you offer to buy the daughter a television as a graduation present. Is that a permissible gift? No. Gifts to family members are also considered gifts to the public official, and if you don't know the daughter, you can't give that gift. A television would be considered an improper gift to the county official and must be declined. The county official could be prosecuted for accepting that gift, and you as a contractor could be sanctioned as well. Unfortunately, the recent experience in Cuyahoga County has shown that contractors can get themselves in trouble by not knowing the law or not understanding the law. Here is a list of 6 people who you don't want to be. William Nieheiser, for example, provided travel, golf, and tickets in exchange for bid rigging assistance. He never received any money, but he was simply helped to get a public contract. And he did it through golf, travel, tickets, cash as well. He ended up 37 months in prison. Steve Pumper performed work at Jimmy DeMora's house in exchange for government contracts, favors, and help in resolving a lawsuit. He ended up with 8 years in prison and $2 million in restitution. Similarly, Tim Armstrong helped run the VAS property appraisal company that received over $21.4 million in improper county contracts. He was sentenced to 42 months in prison and $1.5 million in restitution. The list continues. Dinesh Bafna never provided any money, but instead he provided services, and he provided granite slabs to Auditor Russo's home. As a result of that, he was sentenced to 6 months in prison and $5,800 in restitution. Similarly, Brian Schumann was also sentenced to jail. He helped pay for a trip to Las Vegas for a gambling party in exchange for help in fundraising on behalf of a halfway house. He got 4 months of home confinement, 300 hours of community service, and $10,000 in restitution. And his sentence was reduced only because he turned state's evidence and cooperated with the government. Last, but certainly not least, there were more than 40 convicted contractors, but Ferris Kleem helped pay for the Las Vegas trip for DeMora and Frank Russo, as well as several other bribes in helping to obtain contracts for his Berea-based business. He was sentenced to 36 months in prison, a $250,000 fine, and $24,000 in restitution. And that was even though Ferris Kleem was the low bidder on many contracts. The fact that you are a low bidder does not allow you to provide gifts or restitution. I want you to think about several things here. First of all, in many of these instances, people who contractors thought were their friends and business partners turned around. So in every situation in which you are involved, someone else knows about what's going on, and they will cooperate with the government. Secondly, it's not always cash. It can be the cabana in Las Vegas, the suite, the granite in their homes. But the third piece to know is that our culture has changed in Cuyahoga County. If you're approached or approach a public official, you should know that they're likely to cooperate with law enforcement authorities. So what we want you to do is aspire to the highest of ethical standards. As a public contractor, there are also a number of restrictions that you need to know about the proper way to award and receive a public contract. And I want to talk about those now. You may have friends or family members who are public officials. Three of the most common restrictions restrict the award of public contracts to family members or business associates. A public official cannot authorize or use their authority to secure a public contract for their family member, for themselves, or even for a business associate. Public officials are prohibited from having an interest in the profits or benefits of a public contract with any connected agency or receiving anything of value to a public official from approval of a contract. And you as a contractor need to know that if a contract is issued under those circumstances, you may be sanctioned as well. What does it mean to be prohibited from authorizing or using your authority to secure the authorization? That means that your family member or your business associate who may be a public official cannot recommend you as a vendor, they cannot review your application as a contractor, they can't help you write the bid specifications or fill out a purchase order or complete a travel expense report. They can't participate in the discussion or the debate relating to the contract, and they certainly can't sign a contract. I want to be very clear. They cannot participate in the discussion and then simply recuse themselves from the vote or the decision. They cannot have any involvement whatsoever if they are one of your family members or business associates. So let me give you some examples of where that conduct is prohibited. For example, can a public official vote to award a road maintenance contract to a company owned by a family member? Absolutely not. This would be considered an improper interest in a contract and an improper use of their authority. Can an official even advocate to award a public contract to a company that will use that money to buy property owned by the official? No. The public official in their capacity cannot use or advocate a public contract on behalf of a family member or a business associate. And similarly, an official cannot accept a job from a company that created the position with money from a contract awarded by that official. Contractor debarments. We've spoken today a little bit about criminal issues, and we've talked about ethical issues and conflicts of interest. And you should know that those sorts of violations and other violations can result in the debarment of a contractor. In fact, just in the last few years, we've had 37 debarments since 2012. And the length of those debarments varies with the severity of the offense. So for example, there is a mandatory 5-year debarment for any conviction for a felony or a misdemeanor, ethics violations, or violations of public contracting laws. Similarly, there's a 3-year debarment for a willful or reckless breach of contract, even for violations of the small business enterprise or disadvantaged business enterprise rules, prevailing wage violations, failure to cooperate with the investigations of the Inspector General, delinquent taxes, or unethical business practices. And there is an 18-month possible debarment for breach of contract with the county or acts of moral turpitude. Don't be that guy, don't be that contractor. We want to make sure that you stay current and approved by our county Inspector General. Another topic that often comes up with public contractors is whether they can hire public employees to come join their business and continue to do business with the county. And the answer to that is generally no, and there are prohibitions that limit your ability to hire employees who used to be public employees with Cuyahoga County. Let's talk about those now. In addition to the other ethics requirements, the county has tightened up its prohibitions against the revolving door practice of employees coming in and out of government business and then trying to use their experience in government in a way that might be improper. So County Code Section 403.09a provides that no present or former elected official or employee shall, during public service or for 12 months thereafter, represent or act in a representative capacity for any purpose or organization on any matter involving the exercise of discretion by the county or any agent thereof in which the present or former elected official or employee personally participated in his or her capacity as a county official. So in short, county officials and county employees, while they are in office and for 12 months afterwards, can't continue to be involved in the same issues that they were involved in when they were in office. And the purpose of this is to prevent the appearance of wrongdoing or the ability to use relationships and information for a period of 12 months after the end of public service. The revolving door issue doesn't just occur after people leave, but also during the process of negotiating new job possibilities. So for example, County Code Section 403.09b provides that elected officials and employees shall disclose to the Inspector General any employment offers or ongoing discussions of future employment with any entity presently dealing with the county concerning matters within the scope of the individual's current or official duties. So what that means to you as a contractor is that if you're engaged in requesting county action or county funding for any type of contract, you can't also be offering a job to the person who you are communicating with on the subject of that contract or job. In addition to the limitations imposed by the county code, there are also limitations imposed by the Ohio Revised Code. Just as we had in the gift section where there are county requirements and state requirements, the same is the case with respect to limitations after public employment. And you as a contractor should know that you're limited in who you can hire or at least how you can use them once you've hired them. Revised Code Section 102.03a prohibits any employee from representing a client or a contractor on any matter in which they personally participated during their public service in government. And this applies for 1 year after they've left that position. No compensation is required, so even if you're not paying this former employee, they cannot be hired or engaged to employ you. There are a few limited exceptions, but what you should know is that under both the county code and the state code, a former public employee cannot return to their office or return to their area of government and attempt to participate in a matter on which they served the public. So if you hire a former public employee and ask them to be involved in government contracts, ask yourself this: is the employee within the restricted period of time? Have they been working on that issue within the last 12 months? Secondly, did they personally participate in the issue? And third, is this representation of your business in front of the county government? If the answer to those questions is yes, you should think twice, call our office, and you should probably not have that employee involved in any business relations on that topic during that period of time with Cuyahoga County. Finally, and not by any means least, is public employees have ongoing requirements of confidentiality, which last a lifetime. This goes beyond simply representing a contractor in front of the Cuyahoga County. It goes to the information that a public official or a public employee can gain during the course of their public employment. Their duties of confidentiality remain forever. It is a lifetime prohibition during and after leaving office. And again, no compensation is required. So if one of your employees learned confidential information while they were a public employee, they can never disclose that to you or to anyone else. In addition to the other ethical requirements of the county code, the county also protects whistleblowers and tries to make sure that we have the best information possible in order to investigate possible wrongdoing. This is codified in Section 406.01 of the new county code, and it has two important elements. The first is that it's improper to file a complaint knowing it to be false or submitting a complaint in bad faith or with reckless disregard for the truth. We want the truth and the whole truth, And we want people to come to us with information that's accurate so that we can follow up on it and make sure that taxpayers are getting the government that they deserve. Similarly, in the second bullet, we want to protect anyone who comes to us with a good faith belief who files a written complaint about a potential violation of the county ethics code. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to be correct or accurate, but it does mean that they have to believe in what they are saying. And these whistleblowers are protected by a prohibition of retaliation against anyone who brings a good faith complaint. I want to encourage everyone to report all complaints of retaliation to the Inspector General for investigation. If you see something, say something. Our whistleblower hotline number is 216-698-2999. If you believe that there's something wrong, call 216-698-2999. Cuyahoga County takes ethics very seriously, and part of that is making sure there is no discrimination against contractors or employees. Codified in County Code sections 404.03 and 405.03 makes it very clear that no contractor or lobbyist shall discriminate against anyone on the basis of race, religion, national origin, age, sex, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, or genetic information. Regardless of whether we are employees or contractors or lobbyists, we want to make sure that the county and all of its contractors and lobbyists adhere to one of the most important aspects of ethics, which is non-discrimination. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this ethics training. Ethics is everyone's business. It protects you, it protects the taxpayer, and it protects the government. We want to thank you. If there are any questions you have, please call the Office of Inspector General. Call me, Mark Griffin, at 216-698-2101, or visit us on our website for more information. We have the County Ethics Code, we have requirements, we have a copy of this presentation, and we have more information as well as a tip line on where you can report anything that you may see or that you may want to say. You can also call us directly. If you see something, say something. Call us on our tip line at 216-698-2999. Ethics only works if we all participate, and I promise to you that if you call us, we will move quickly. Thank you for doing business with Cuyahoga County.